大家好，这里是听广播学英语频道。今天的广播是科学方面的3个话题。该播客讨论了 NPR 的 ShortWave 节目，内容涉及入侵的Joro蜘蛛，一种将蝉变成僵尸的真菌，以及太空飞行对宇航员健康的影响。那么我们来听广播吧。
You're listening to ShortWave from NPR.
Hey, Shortwavers, Regina Barber here, and this time I've got 2 of our favorites for our regular roundup of science news, the legend, Sasha Pfeiffer. Hey.
Hi.
And a co-host that we've had on for many of these news roundups and a wonderful producer, Rachel Carlson.
Hey, Gina, thanks.
Yeah, so as you both know, we're going to share 3 science stories in the news that have caught our attention recently.
Yep, we're starting with invasive Joro spiders making their way across the East Coast.
And I saw in some prep notes that there's one about a fungus turning cicadas into sex-obsessed zombies.
Yeah. And then we close it all out with a story about how spaceflight is affecting astronaut health.
All that on this episode of Shortwave, the science podcast from NPR.
All right, Sasha, as our guest, which topic should we start with?
Well, a lot of people are badly freaked out by spiders, so let's just rip the Band-Aid off and start with that one.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell everyone that, let's not worry about these Joro spiders. They're not dangerous. They do have these, really big webs. The females do have inch-long bodies, and the legs make them up to almost 4 inches long. Well, okay, and they're black, and they're electric yellow, and they're venomous.
Now we see why people don't like spiders so much.
Not helping so much, Gina. Let me give this a try. So Joro spiders rarely bite, and even if they did, their fangs are super small. They'd have a really hard time even getting through your skin. And if they did bite you, it's easily treated just like a normal bug bite and even less painful than a bee sting.
Again, spiders not so bad, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So how did these spiders get here?
So they most likely got here through shipping containers from East Asia, and now they have this big population in Atlanta, and it's a big port of entry, so that makes sense. And it's also has a similar humidity and temperature to their natural habitat in Asia.
And the spiders can die if it gets too cold, so with climate change warming our planet, researchers think that warmer winters are going to help Joros establish populations in more places farther north.
You mentioned that these spiders are invasive, and obviously oftentimes invasive species can be very bad for ecosystems. Do we know if this is going to be bad for the East Coast in any way?
We actually don't know yet. There needs to be more research on how Joro spiders are affecting their environment and other native species. But one of the researchers I talked to said that spiders are a prime example of 2 trends that are helping a lot of other invasive species spread, and that's global shipping routes expanding and a warmer climate.
And Sasha, we can all help researchers by tracking Joros. So if you see one, you can log it on community sites like iNaturalist, Project Joro, or JoroWatch.
They have their own websites. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so your next story keeps us on the critter beat. It's about a fungus that is turning cicadas into what you described as sexed-up zombies?
Yes. So you've probably heard about this huge cicada phenomenon happening this year, right?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so there's these 2 groups of periodical cicadas, and they're emerging at the same time. One comes out every 17 years in the Midwest, and the other emerges every 13 years in the Midwest and the Southeast.
And where does the zombification come in?
Okay, yeah. So our colleague Rachel Treisman recently reported on this. It's the fungal parasite Mesospora cicadina, which has been observed in these cicadas in about half a dozen states now. It fills an infected cicada's abdomen and then emerges out of its back end like this chalky white gumdrop. Or at least that's how Matt Casson described it. He's a fungi scientist.
I have never liked gumdrops. Now I definitely never will eat gumdrops.
Absolutely not.
It's a horrible visual. Okay, so Matt told NPR that this fungus is unique because it keeps the cicada alive even after a third of its body has been replaced by this fungal tissue. And it's not just alive, it makes the cicadas hypersexual in an attempt to spread its spores.
So is it kind of like the fungus hijacking the cicadas for their own gain, and then the zombified cicadas spread the fungus even farther?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So infected male cicadas will try to mate with healthy females and then also other males, and they're really just flying around and raining down spores like flying salt shakers of death. That's how Matt put it.
This guy's good at phrases.
I know, yeah. He has some really good language. And if that weren't enough, Matt says this fungus produces a stimulant that likely means all of these cicadas are high out of their minds while this is all going down.
Is it known how widespread this fungus is in the cicadas?
So Matt says the incidence of infection is pretty low, maybe below 5%, although he's encountered some areas where it's as high as 20 to 30%. And if you happen to come across one yourself, don't worry, this fungus is specialized to cicadas, according to scientists at Chicago's Field Museum of Natural History. So safe to handle, but you might want to wash your hands after that.
A good rule for life in general.
Yes.
Last topic, totally different. This one's really interesting. I saw an article about this just today, understanding how spaceflight affects human health.
Yeah, okay, so as we know, humans have evolved to thrive here on Earth, which means spaceflight and microgravity are, to put it simply, rough on the body. We've known that astronauts lose bone density in space, blood and bodily fluids are redistributed in microgravity, which really just means that without the effects of Earth's gravity, these things are all pushed upwards from the legs and abdomen to the heart and the head.
But we haven't known much about what's happening inside human cells during spaceflight. And as spaceflight becomes more common and astronauts set out on longer missions, this other piece of the puzzle is crucial.
And are these new findings getting at that, about what happens at the cellular level in space?
Yeah, so that's the goal, because right now we don't know that much, but a huge collection of papers released this week in Nature and its companion journals is starting to fill in some gaps about what's going on inside cells. I talked to one researcher, Elia Overby, who told me about this one finding. Telomeres, or markers of aging at the ends of chromosomes, seem to get longer during spaceflight as opposed to generally getting shorter like they do here on Earth.
And if telomeres get longer, do we know if that's a bad thing?
Okay, yeah, so Elia said we don't really know the implications of this yet, which is kind of the whole problem, but she does hope that a new database, the Space Omics and Medical Atlas, is going to help answer this question. It's the largest of its kind to date and includes data from a bunch of different space missions.
Yeah, astronauts gave samples of things like blood, saliva, and even skin biopsies before spaceflight, and then researchers compared those samples to ones taken after they returned to Earth.
Is the idea that now that we have more data, we'll be able to take better care of astronauts?
Yeah, both Elia and a space physician I talked to, Emmanuel Urquieta, talked about personalized medicine. And Elia said the SOMA database helps us get closer to that kind of care for individual astronauts and for civilians who are interested in things like commercial space travel.
Instead of, it being a shot in the dark, a completely exploratory exercise in figuring out what's going on in the human body, they now have something to point them towards for novel scientific questions that they didn't have before.
Right now, they only have data for a small number of people, but Emmanuel and Elia both say data like this will help usher us into a new era of space exploration.
So interesting, the toll on the body that space travel can take. What interesting research this is.
Yeah, I don't ever want to go to space. Sasha, thank you so much for laughing with us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, come hang out with us anytime.
I love doing this with both of you, so thanks very much.